Hello everyone. Let's review shlokas 144 and 145 in Lalita Sahasranamam. bhāgyābdhi chandrikā bhakta chitta keki ghanāghanā rogaparvata dambhoḻir mṛtyudāru kuṭhārikā maheśvarī mahākāḻī mahāgrāsā mahā'śanā aparṇā chandrikā muṇḍā'sura niśhūdinī. Now we'll review the meanings of the namas. Before we get to the namas, so far we are looking at Devi as the transformation. How Devi transforms our lives by piercing through all our limitations or by eliminating anything that holds us in the path of transformation. So that's what we have been looking at. So these are also in the same context. bhāgyābdhi chandrikā. So bhāgyābdhi chandrikā, that is the first nama here. So bhagyam means fortune, abdi means ocean, and chandrika means the full moon. So bhagyābdhi chandrika means she makes our fortunes rise just like the ocean rises under the influence of a full moon. So when there is a full moon, there is a tide. That means the waves are rising, or the ocean looks like it's rising, right, under the influence of that pull. Like that, when we are devoted towards Devi, her sadhana makes our fortunes rise. So all the good things in our life are increasing. Bhakta, chitta, keki, ghanāghanā. Bhakta means devotee. Chitta can be interpreted as mind. Chittam also means consciousness. In this case, we'll look at it as mind. Keki means peacock. And ghanāghanā means rain clouds. So, when somebody is devoted to Devi and is in the path of sadhana, what happens? That devotee, that bhakta, devotee's mind rejoices like how a peacock dances when it looks at the rain clouds. So, bhakta chitta keki ghanāghanā. She makes her devotee's mind rejoice or be so happy, just similar to how a peacock becomes happy looking at the rain clouds. It spreads its feathers and it does a happy dance. So, similar to that, the devotee's mind is happy. Obviously, you can look at if you look at it in the context of the previous namas, she was bhavadava sudhavrishti. So when life circumstances are making it a little bit unbearable, so the heat references to the circumstances making our life a little bit miserable, then she is the sudhavrishti. She pours like a nectar, and you can see here it could have just been rain, right? But here it is sudhavrishti. Sudha means nectar, amritam. With amritam, things don't get destroyed. Everything is preserved. So she preserves the joy in our life. She gets us out of those unfortunate circumstances. And then we saw she is the fire that can burn all the sins away. Even if it's dense like a forest, the sins are burnt away. And then all the daurbhagyam, the misfortunes are like a cotton that is caught in a tornado. So misfortunes just like that fly away. And she dispels the darkness in our life. So in the same theme now, she makes her fortunes increase, and she makes so obviously if all of this happen, if the life circumstances are improved, the sins are gone away, the misfortunes fly away, the darkness is dispelled, the fortunes are increasing, why wouldn't a devotee's mind rejoice? And all of this pave way for the transformation. Again, it's not just worldly enjoyment, but they allow for us to let go of our limitations. And in that, she makes the devotee's mind rejoice just like a peacock looking at the rain cloud. Rogaparvata dambhoḻir. Rogam means diseases. Parvata means mountain. And dambhoļir means thunderbolt. So it is a powerful weapon that can even destroy a mountain. You can think of that as Indra's Vajrayudha. So she is the thunderbolt that can destroy the mountain of diseases. And a few ways to look at it. Anytime somebody is sick, you can see that one thought will eclipse everything else that's going on in the life, right? So that is threatening, and the problem seems unsurmountable, like a big mountain, right? So that occupies the entire person's consciousness. That becomes the most important thing. So when things are like that, when things look so unsurmountable, when the diseases are threatening a person, then she is the thunderbolt, because a mountain cannot be easily destroyed. But with her thunderbolt, with her as the thunderbolt, that diseases will go away. So in a literal physical sense, we can interpret that as she is someone who will destroy all the diseases. Another way to look at the rogam, it's still a disease, but it is not a literal disease in the physical context, but rather it is the vices of the mind. It is all the limitations that we have, which do not allow us to see what truly lies behind it. And if you see, all our minds, because of all the attachment towards worldly things, our mind is a little bit clouded. The buddhi is not clear. That's why we are interpreting things the way we are interpreting. When that lens is nicely cleansed and it's shining through, then the actual perception will come. So just like a mountain is so big and it hides anything that's behind it. All our mental vices are like that. They are like a mountain because they cover or hide what is behind, and the true perception is behind that, and she is the thunderbolt that will come and break that mountain of perceptions or mental vices. Then when that mountain is gone, then we are able to see what's behind it very clearly. So if you take rogam in the physical sense, then she is someone who will save us from all the physical diseases. If you take rogam in the mental sense, then she is someone who is capable of destroying all our vices and therefore allowing us to see what's truly behind it. Mṛtyudāru kuṭhārikā. Mrityu means death, daru means tree, and kuṭhārikā means an axe or a woodcutter. So she destroys the tree of death. She is the axe that destroys the tree of death. So here you can see that the death is being compared to a tree. Why would death be compared to a tree? So if you look at trees or in general vegetation, wherever there is soil, vegetation is possible. There is a rain, something will crop up, right? So the soil and vegetation kind of go hand in hand, right? Where there is soil, there is vegetation. Similarly, if you look at the death, the moment somebody is born, there is a possibility of death, right? Everything that's born in this world has to die one day. And therefore, inherent in birth is also death, right? So it is like the soil and vegetation kind of soil and tree relationship. Just because there is birth, there is also death. So that is the relationship. And if you take soil and vegetation, even though the tree is coming from the ground and it is actually using the soil to sustain itself and nourish itself, the soil cannot destroy the tree, right? It cannot cut down the tree. The soil is powerless to cut down a tree that's grown on itself. Similarly, even though inherent in birth there is death, the death uses every actions we have, everything that we do, it creates a grip on that person. So actually, if you see, the fear of death is actually worse than the death itself, right? So that is a big deal, and it starts to constrain the person's action, or it starts to cloud the person's perception, and our actions become influenced by those fears. So similarly, how a soil cannot destroy a tree that is grown out of itself, no individual is capable of cutting down their fear of death or approaching death without any concerns. So death is inherent, but the fear of death is also inherent in everybody. So like that, how the soil cannot cut it down, but an axe, and that is also the axe's handle is also built out of the same wood, but that axe can actually cut it. So similarly, she can come and destroy the fear of death. And the moment somebody stops fearing death, they've actually conquered death. So she is that axe that can help people win over their fear of death. And the death here is compared to a tree that grows out of the soil. So overall, if we look at the Shloka 143 and 144, we can see all the things because of Devi, how our lives can be transformed by continuing on that sadhana. The next nama here is Maheśvarī. It can be split as mahā'śvarī. Maha means great, Ishvari means ruler. So she is the supreme ruler. And the example for why she is the supreme ruler is already in all the previous namas. Someone who can transform life is obviously supreme. And Ishvari is the sovereign. Somebody whose powers are limitless. And all these previous namas tell us how her powers work and why we think it's limitless. So she is mahā'śvarī, the supreme ruler. And the special thing about this nama, it is the 750th nama in Lalita Sahasranamam. So today we have finished 750 namas with this one. And there is also a Maheśvarī, that is the in the first within the 200 to 300 there is a nama called Maheśvarī. In that context she is Maheshwara's wife, and therefore she is Maheshwarī. And here it is Maheshwarī, mahā'śvarī. Lalita Sahasranamam happens to be the only Sahasranamam where no namas are repeated. And it is not like the same nama interpreted in different ways. Just can't even find the same nama again. So it has that unique quality, and therefore Maheshwarī here is mahā'śvarī. The next nama here is mahākāḻī. Maha again means great. Kāli. Kali can be looked at multiple ways. One, it references the color black. So Kala is black. Another thing is Kalam also references time. So that's why we call Shiva as mahākāḻā. And then she is mahākāḻī. So that is something that we can look at it as mahākāḻī. And we all know Kali is a fierce form of Devi. And Kali is someone who destroys all the evil. And she cannot even tolerate all this evil. So she is mahākāḻī, and Kali is associated with time. Right? So she destroys everything that is evil. She also is responsible for destroying time. She brings about the change. So time, change, and we also know Kalan is Yama, and Kalan means death. And so she is also the goddess of death. And as we have already seen, she is one who is capable of helping her devotees conquer the fear of death. And also we have seen she is the one who destroys all our sins. And when all the sins are destroyed and the person is achieved that enlightenment, then that person will stop being in this vicious cycle of birth and death. So in that way, she allows her devotees to conquer death by making sure they are never born. So conquering death does not just mean that the person is born and never dies. That is not immortality. Immortality means that achieving a place where they never have to go through the cycle of birth and death. By not being born, the person never dies, and therefore they've conquered death. So she's also that Kali who helps us conquer death. So we saw Kala can be black, Kala can be time, and Kala can be the ability to conquer death. So mahākāḻī is a goddess who's responsible for time, change, death, and she wins over everything evil. And if you look at the Kala, the word black, right? Something is black because it absorbs all the colors into it, and that's why it is black. And therefore you can see she is that force in which everything becomes consumed, right? The universe goes through cycles where there is manifestation and then there is pralayam, when everything goes back into nothing. So in that context, Kala can also mean that she is one who consumes everything. And the other way to look at it is Kala, when we say, when it is dark, right, in the night, we can't see anything. So generally we associate dark or black with nothing. So that also represents the Nirguna Brahman. So this ultimate reality has no attributes. You can't describe it with anything. So mahākāḻī also represents that. So Kali is a goddess who represents time, death, change, and destruction of evil. Mahāgrāsā. Maha again is great. Grāsā means devourer. And devouring is a way of consuming things in a destructive angle. Right? That's what a devour means. And we just saw she is mahākāḻī as the time. And you can see nothing can escape time. Time devours all. Right? And time destroys everything. So that is the nature of time. So she is mahāgrāsā as the mahākāḻī who is responsible for time. She is one who devours everything. So nothing can escape that time. And there is that expiry date hanging on everybody. And time will result in decay and death. So that is a given thing. In that context, she is mahāgrāsā. Mahā'śanā. mahā'śanā. So maha again is great. And āśanā means eater. That means somebody who consumes, eats a lot, right? Voraciously eating it. So that is mahā'śanā. So she is, as we saw in the deluge, what happens is everything that manifested out of that ultimate reality again gets consumed back into that ultimate reality. Kind of like a black hole. Everything goes back into it. So in that context, she is mahā'śanā. So mahāgrāsā and mahā'śanā kind of sound the same. One is devouring, another is eating a lot, and both have the similar context. But you can think of one as the time that destroys everything, and another as the deluge that consumes everything back into it. There is also another nama called mahā'śanā. mahā'śanā, right? Asanam means seat, and here it is mahā'śanā. So there is a sa and sha difference. So while the namas may sound very similar, they're actually different namas. Aparṇā. Aparṇā means aparṇā. So a means always it negates it. Parna means leaf. So aparṇā means without leaf. So what does that mean? So we all know Parvati undertook a penance in order to attain Shiva. And we all know prior to the Bhāgyābdhi story, you know how Shiva was on a deep penance, and they had to, this Tarakasura had the boon that only a son of Shiva can destroy him, and therefore it became imperative that Shiva marries. And they all chose Parvati, and they thought, we should make Shiva fall in love with Parvati, and then he'll marry her, and they will have a son, and he will come and kill Tarakasura, and that's how all the universes will prosper. So they hatched all the plans. They made Manmada go and put the Cupid arrow on Shiva, and then Parvati was positioned correctly so that when he opens the eyes, he will see Parvati, he'll fall in love with her. Everything was a perfect plan, but we all know how that went. It didn't work very well, and Shiva ended up burning Manmada, and Parvati, who was standing there when all this unfolded, was deeply ashamed. It was very hard as a woman to want to marry someone, and that person, you have to go through so much hardship in order to make that person marry you. But that also brought forth her realization that Shiva is not someone who you can, through all these tactics and tricks, make him come to you. If you really want Shiva, then you have to do the penance. You have to be devoted to Shiva. You have to demonstrate your devotion, and that's the only way Shiva will come to you. However hard he may be to get, there is one thing that brings all the gods to us, and that is devotion. If we take one step towards a god, God will take 10 steps towards us. So that is the nature of God. So she realizes that, and therefore she goes and does a deep penance. And the penance is a very intense penance. If it is the summer season, she is standing in the midst of fire. If it is the winter season, you can imagine she's in Himalayas and it's all snow, very cold. If that's the case, then she is wearing light clothes and without any footwear. She's standing on ice and she's doing the penance. And then initially she was taking some food, and she used to eat fruits, she used to eat leaves, etc. Slowly she gave up all the fruits, and then she was only sustaining herself on leaves. And then at one point she even gave up that leaves, and then she just went just sustaining on air, not eating anything. And that kind of intensity and the demonstration of devotion is what brought Shiva close to her. So, and that's how they got married. Obviously, Shiva wanted to test her devotion, but that's why we call her Aparṇā, because she did not even take leave. Sometimes you can consider this without any food. Another way to break this aparṇā is aparṇā. Rīṇam means debt, or a loan, if you can think of it. So she is, apa means, again it negates it, she is not indebted to anything. So what is that debt? That debt is the karmic debt. Each one of us, the manifested forms, we are all bound by karma. Karma is that every action that we do, there is a equal opposite reaction for that. So the consequences, we have to face the consequences of our action. If your actions are good, you will get good consequences. If your actions are bad, then you will get bad consequences. And if you do not face the consequences in this birth, because of karma, there will be a next birth. So that debt is there for everyone. And the only way to close that balance and negate all of that is that when our papam and punyam both are equal to 0, then the karmic debt is resolved, and that's a very hard state to achieve for anybody. Whereas she, as that ultimate reality, is not under the influence of Maya, and because she is not under the influence of Maya, the 3 malas don't apply to her, and therefore she is not indebted to anybody. And another way to look at it is, if you ask her something, she immediately grants it. So there is no backlog with her. You ask her, she will give it to you. If your intent is sincere, your devotion is sincere, she will grant it to you. She is so generous in that way. So because of that, no pending backlog, no rinam, no debt. It's not like, wait, I'll give you the answer. She's given the answer then and there. So she grants all the wishes for her devotees, and therefore there is no debt even to all of us from her side. That's another way to look at it. Chandrikā. Chandi is someone who's fierce, who's terrifying. And so Chandrikā is a fierce form of Devi. So she is angry. And who's she angry towards? She is angry towards anyone who does evil acts. So she will not tolerate evil acts. And those evil acts are something where the person starts to harm everyone else around them. So that is something that she will not tolerate. So she is Chandrikā, who is the fierce form, who destroys all the evil and who teaches a lesson for anything evil. And in this particular context, Chandrikā is mahā'śanā, and all of us are familiar with the story of mahā'śanā, so we call her Chandrikā. muṇḍā'sura niśhūdinī. So Chanda is one of the asuras, and these Chanda and Munda, both of them are brothers, and they are asuras who were generals with Shumba and Nishumba. So Chanda, Munda, Asura. Asura is demons. Niśhūdinī. Niśhūdinī means slain or destroy. So she is someone who destroyed the demons Chanda and Munda. So if you look at the story of Shumba Nishumba Vadam, she came as Kali and she cut off the head of Chanda and Munda. So that's why, she destroyed both Chanda and Munda, and together that's why she's called as Chamundi. So she destroyed Chanda and Munda, and therefore she is called as Chamundi. Obviously, Mundam is one where there is no head, only body, and Chandam is one where there is only head and no body. So she destroyed them like that, and that's why she is Chamundi. And Kali is called as Chamundi because she is the one who killed them. And you can see in this particular shloka, mahākāḻī is a nama, Chandrikā is a nama, and Chanda muṇḍā'sura niśhūdinī is a nama. And actually all 3 of them are connected by Devi Mahatmyam. So we all know Devi Mahatmyam is a book where there are 3 stories about Devi that's mentioned. And so the first story is where Devi is mahākāḻī. She was the Yoga Nidra, and she helped Vishnu kill Madhu and Kaitaba. So mahākāḻī is associated with the Madhu Kaitaba Vadam. And then Chandrikā is the mahā'śanā, and she is the Mahalakshmi who came to destroy Mahisha, and therefore she is called as Chandrikā. And then muṇḍā'sura niśhūdinī, she is the Kaushiki who came to destroy Shumba and Nishumba, and in that process there were several generals from Shumba and Nishumba who came to fight. And Chanda and Munda are one of those. There are also Dhumralochana and Raktabija. So special thing, it has the 3 namas from Devi Mahatmyam. With that, we have looked at all the namas in these 2 shlokas. So let's take a look at a short story related to the nama bhakta, chitta, keki, ghanāghanā. So we said bhakta, chitta, keki, ghanāghanā means she makes her devotees' mind rejoice like a peacock that looks at the rain clouds. So the peacock is dancing for a couple of reasons. One, you can think of it as the rain clouds indicate that rain is going to come, and that will help the peacock cool down. Remember, all these monsoon is happening at the end of summer in India, and these are based on that. So the peacock may be happy because it's going to cool down, the heat is going to come down, which kind of is relevant to the circumstances becoming better. On the other way, that also happens to be the peacock's mating season, and therefore the peacock knows that life will go in a happy path. So that's why it could be happy. So the bhakta, chitta, keki, ghanāghanā, she makes us rejoice. She makes all her devotees rejoice like the peacock that looks at the rain clouds. Actually, if you see in Shivananda Lahari, Adi Shankaracharya says that not just the devotees dance when the rain clouds, like devotees dance like a peacock and that watches the rain cloud. Even Shiva himself, when he looks at Parvati, who's the rain cloud, he dances. And obviously, Parameshvara is the first Devi Upasaka, so he also counts in the bhakta, but he is also special because he is Shiva. So there are stories about Shiva being compared to the peacock. So now today we'll look at a story. It's not the devotees that are dancing like the peacock. It's not Shiva who's dancing like the peacock. She herself came down as a peahen. So once Shiva and Parvati were in Himalayas, and Parvati is always watching out for our good. So Shiva initially was of the opinion that Kali Yugam is going to be very troublesome. So he wasn't willing to introduce any secrets or anything, because the Kali Yugam is going to be many parts bad, right? And very little good. So he decided he wouldn't reveal any of the secrets. But Parvati was actually telling him, advocating on all our behalf and saying at least something should be there. So at least a little bit good is there that can latch on, and therefore good can grow. And therefore Shiva agreed. And we all know Shiva is the Adi Yogi, the teacher, and there are lots of sutras that are considered like a textbook, and therefore that's all available. Those secrets are available. People can pursue that. On the other hand, there is also something called as a tantram. And this tantram is actually something where somebody is teaching one-on-one. Okay, they're doing. So they're also called as Yamala or Yamala. Yamala means duet or twin. So that's a one-on-one. So there are lots of things where we are told that Shiva taught all these secrets and tantras to Parvati. And that's how they came to the world. So they're all called as tantram. And so similar to this, Shiva told Parvati, okay, if you're so interested, I will teach you the tantras. And therefore, that particular day, Shiva is sitting on a particular rock. You can imagine it like that. And then just right below him, she's sitting there because he's now the guru teaching, and she's sitting there. And Shiva on that particular day was expounding upon Namah Shivaya. We all know that's a Panchakshari, and Namah Shivaya is deeply powerful. Anybody who chants it, they will get the grace of Shiva. So he is telling about Namah Shivaya, and that is so deep and so esoteric and all of this that's happening. And obviously Shiva had an expectation that his student is listening with intent and focus. And so he is expounding upon all of that. And then as he is telling, He's looking at Parvati, and suddenly he realizes she's smiling and she's looking far away somewhere. And Shiva was upset. You know what? She's the one who said that you should teach everything, and he's teaching and he's telling something so important like Namah Shivaya, and she is watching somewhere distracted, smiling, and he sees what is she looking at. And Parvati clearly is distracted, and she's distracted by a lot of peacocks dancing there. It is a beautiful weather, and Himalayas has some beautiful gardens, and there is this peacocks all with their plume in display and glistening, and all the peahens around, and that's such a beautiful sight to behold. And obviously Parvati was distracted by that, but Shiva didn't take kindly to that. He got very mad, and he said, you know what, you asked me for this and you're now not being focused. If you're so distracted by those peacocks, you also go become one of the peahens along with them. And unless you prove to me that you're serious about this, I'm not going to teach you again. So you go do the penance and demonstrate to me that you're sincere about learning this, then we can look at this. That's it. So Shiva cursed Parvati, and therefore Parvati obviously realizes that she was distracted, and now she has to prove her devotion. So Parvati is born as a peahen, and she is born in a place called Vedapuri. This place Vedapuri is one where all the 4 Vedas worship Shiva, and therefore under a punnai tree, and there is a Shivalinga, and this peahen used to worship that Shivalinga every single day. So those are all things that were done every single day. It'll offer prayers, it'll sit next to the Shivalingam, and it'll be focused on the Shivalingam. And then as time passed, Shiva became very happy with the demonstration of that devotion, and therefore he appeared, and therefore she was relieved from her curse. And that particular place, because the peahen worshipped Shiva, and in Tamil it is called Mailai. Mail means peacock, and therefore in Tamil it is called as Mailapur, where Mail worshipped. Puram means place. Therefore, a place where the peacock worshipped, in Tamil it's called as Mailapur. It's also called as Mayurapuri. And there she is standing there as Karpagambal. And Karpagam means the wish fulfilling tree. So whatever we wish, she will grant it. So she's standing there as Karpagambal. She's also called as Karpagavalli. And this is in Mylapore, a very, very popular temple called Kapalishvara temple. So there she's standing as a Karpagambal along with Kapalishvara, and she will fulfill any wish of her devotees. And that's why Karpagambal, Maile Karpagambal, is extremely generous. So she will fulfill any wishes of her devotees, and she will ensure that her devotees' mind is dancing like the peacock that is looking at the rain cloud. So as Karpagambal, she's standing there to ensure bhakta, chitta, keki, ghanāghanā. So that is Karpagambal for you. And the Kapalishvara temple has so many more greatness with it. The god is called as Kapalishvara, and the reason he's called as Kapalishvara is that when once Brahma thought that, I have 5 heads and Shiva also has 5 heads, therefore I'm equal to Shiva, and he did not respect Shiva, and he was very full of ego, and Shiva took the 5th head of Brahma, and he was holding that Kapalam. Kapalam is that head, and therefore he is celebrated there as Kapalishvara. And Brahma then came and prayed to Kapalishvara, and that's how he was able to get his ability to go and create again, take responsibility for creation. It is also called as Sukrapuri. And this is a place where Sukracharya prayed to Shivalinga there, the Kapalishvara, and he regained his eyesight. So a Kapalishvara temple is also one that is great for getting rid of all the diseases. So that also has a story. So if you all recall, in the Vamana Avatara, Vishnu came as a Vamana, as a young Brahmin boy, and he went to Mahabali Chakravarti, and he asked for the Dhanam, which is he wanted just land that would fit into his 3 steps. Obviously, Mahabali is looking at Vamana. He's really short. He's dwarf, right? And he looks like a very young boy. How much will be three steps with of land? So he was instantly he said yes. But Sukracharya is the teacher of all the demons, and Sukracharya's favorite disciple is Mahabali, and Sukracharya is standing next there. And Sukracharya, because of all his powers, immediately recognizes who came is not just a small boy who's wanting to do the three steps. He came to destroy Mahabali, and therefore Sukracharya is saying, "Don't do that. Don't give this boy that land, three steps of land. Tell him you can't give it." But Mahabali, even though he is a demon, has a lot of good properties also, good qualities in him. And therefore he says, no, I'm a king. I've already given my word. My word is good and therefore I cannot. But in those days, if you see, the word is sealed only when you do it with water. Only after you give the water and tell them, I will give you, that becomes true. Like today's world, if there is a contract, even though there is a contract, everything can be typed. Unless both the parties sign the contract is not valid, right? So if only one party signs and the other party doesn't, that contract is not a valid contract. Similarly, Vamana asked for the Dhanam. Mahabali, through the word, said yes. But until you finish it with water, it is not confirmed. And Mahabali had this thing. The day he goes against the instructions of his teacher, that will be his destruction. So now Sukracharya is very worried. He's seeing that that time has come. He has to stop him somehow. So what he does is he takes the form of a bee and he goes and closes the pout of the kindi. In those days, if you see, the water will be kept in a kettle-like thing and it will have a pout. And then you will have to pour the water out of it. So Sukracharya goes and blocks that thing so that no water will come out. Therefore, the word cannot be sealed and therefore Mahabali will be saved. But Vamana there knows exactly what is happening, and therefore this Vamana takes the darbha grass that is in his hand and then he pokes into that pout. And Sukracharya is there in the form of a bee and it ends up poking one of his eyes. And Sukracharya is in deep pain and therefore he is coming out of that pout and the water comes down, and the rest we all know how Vamana became Tirvikrama. And so Sukracharya's eyes were, one eye was destroyed. And therefore Sukracharya came and prayed here to Kapaleshwara, and that's how he regained his eyesight. So it's also called as Sukrapuri. And so this is a place where it is also associated with health and removing of diseases and also the fear of death. And there is a very interesting story around Tirungyana Sambandar. As we all know, Tirungyana Sambandar is a great devotee of Shiva and he is one of the 4 important devotees of Shiva. And Tirungyana Sambandar was a child prodigy, if you will, and he is the one who was fed by Parvati with milk. You know, he was a little boy and he couldn't find his father. His father had taken a dip in the temple tank. He was crying and Parvati and Shiva heard him, and Parvati came and gave him milk, and because of that he got all the jnanam, and therefore he is considered as he became capable of composing lot of poems and advocating the worship of Shiva. So Tirungyana Sambandar has this kind of a background, and there was a devotee of Shiva called Sivanesan Chettiar, and he was an ardent devotee. And with Chettiars, if you see, they are all extremely devoted to Shiva, and Chettiars are all also people who have lot of money, and therefore he will devote to all the good things in the for the god, for Shiva, constructing temple, lighting lamps there, doing festivals in the temple, whatever is needed. And some of them also have rules where unless they feed a Shivacharya, they won't eat that day. So Sivanesan Chettiar was one who was extremely devoted. And this Sivanesar had a daughter who's called as Poompavai. And this Poompavai was a beautiful girl, and just like her father, she was also very devoted to Shiva. And as Sivanesar saw her growing up, he thought, she is also very devoted to Shiva, and he had heard so much about Tirungyana Sambandar, and he thought, I should get Poompavai married to Tirungyana Sambandar. So When all of this is happening, Poompavai is about 7 years old. Thirungyana Sambandar is about 11 years old. That's the age difference between them, and that's how they are. Of course, in today's context, that might kind of seem awkward that he was thinking about getting a 7-year-old married, but in those days, all the girls got married very early, so he was thinking about who to give her in marriage. So, in his mind, he had made up. Poompavai is going to marry Thirungyana Sambandar. He just had to meet Thirungyana Sambandar and arrange for the match. And one day, Poompavai, along with all her friends, went to the garden to get flowers for the puja. But unfortunately, on that day, there was a snake in the garden, and the snake bit Poompavai, and she immediately died. And Sivanesar was deeply distressed. Losing a child is not a simple thing. So deeply distressed, but of course he had to go on with the next things, and therefore they cremated her, and he got all the ashes, and generally those ashes are dispersed. But in this particular case, Sivanesar did not feel comfortable dispersing the ashes. He thought she belonged to Thirungyana Sambandar. In his mind, he had already given Poompavai to Thirungyana Sambandar. So he felt like only he had a claim over her ashes, and therefore he decided that he will hand over the ashes to Thirungyana Sambandar. So he put that in a pot, he covered it, he kept it with him. He thought, when the day I meet Thirungyana Sambandar, I'll hand it over to him. Then time passed by, and now Thirungyana Sambandar is about 16 years old, and he is coming to in and around Mylapore, and he is coming to Kapalishwara temple. When he comes to Kapalishwara temple and he's seeing everything around, Sivanesar goes to meet Thirungyana Sambandar, and he hands over this ashes to Thirungyana Sambandar, and he tells him, this is the ashes of my daughter Poompavai. I thought I would give her in marriage, but unfortunately she died by snake bite. Because I cannot give the person to you, I am giving her ashes to you. Thirungyana Sambandar is extremely shocked, but he is also a great devotee of Shiva, and therefore immediately Thirungyana Sambandar starts to sing the Padigam. Padigam is a set of songs, about 10 of them, and when he starts to sing that, it's called as Poompavai Padigam, and he starts to sing that, and he is talking about in Kapalishwara temple, even now they do Brahmotsavam, and the Brahmotsavam is a great occasion celebrated in a grand manner, and Sivanesar Chettiar used to contribute to all of that. So then the Padigam is all about, he says, hey, this place is so great, this festival is so great, this kind of events are so great, and how come you are not seeing it? You should be able to see it. So he keeps singing that, and when he finishes that Padigam, the pot completely bursts, and out of the ashes Poompavai comes up as in flesh, blood and flesh. So she comes out as a girl, and she is now 12 years old. So she died as a 7-year-old, and she came back as a 12-year-old. So Kapalishwara temple is something that is renowned for this, and even today during Brahmotsavam, they kind of reenact the scene, and they put like some sugar in a pot, and they pretend that is the ashes, and then they celebrate this, and all these stories are all in the Gopuram. Kapalishwara Gopuram has lots of all these things, pictures or everything sculpted into its Gopuram. So these are things that they celebrate. Obviously, once Poompavai came in person, Sivanesar was overjoyed because that is the kataksham of Kapalishwara and Karpagambal for person who died, whose body was cremated, came back in life. And so Sivanesar says, now that my daughter is returned, now you marry her. But Thirungyana Sambandar refuses, because he says she already died as a 7-year-old. Today she came back as a 12-year-old. I gave her life, therefore I am in the status of a father, and I cannot marry her. And Poompavai goes on to be a great devotee of Shiva, and she also does lots of dharma karyam, and she continues in that path. So such is the story of Mylapore. We say Mailaye Kailai, Kailaye Mailai. So the Mylapore, that particular entire place is sacred, and it has so many songs sung about it. And Kapalishwara and Karpagambal are there blessing everybody, and Karpagambal is standing there ready to give everyone whatever it is that they desire. We want worldly enjoyment, she will give worldly enjoyment. If you want liberation, enlightenment, transformation, she is ready to give it. So whatever be the devotee's desire, she will provide all of that, thus making her devotee's mind very happy. So that way all her devotees can be like the keki ghanāghanā. So that's about bhakta chitta keki ghanāghanā. That's all for today. Thank you.